Hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. This is Warren from the SEO podcast. I'm hosting an amazing podcast today featuring Charles Floate, who has been doing SEO for a long number of years. He has tons of experience under his belt, white hat, black hat SEO, and he has worked in this industry for a very long time, and it will surely be an amazing podcast for us today. We have a whole list of topics lined up for you, and I'll let Charles do a bit of an introduction, and then we'll dive right into it.
Thank you for having me, Warren. Yeah, so you kind of hit the nail on the head there a little bit. I've been doing SEO for about 15 years now. I started in my teens, got kicked out of high school for basically not going, really, and for some small hacking stuff that I was doing as well. But that was in my teen years. I quickly developed into a head of SEO, basically. By the time I was 17, I was working for a London-based agency as the head of SEO. And then I got the kind of bug for not wanting to work for anybody else and wanting to be independent and self-employed and all this kind of stuff. And Matthew Woodward actually gave me the first opportunity to guest post on his blog when I was 17. And that kind of led me to create my own agency, then my own affiliate sites, then my own business, and just kind of scaling from there. And now I run multiple SaaS projects in the SEO and AI space. I have an SEO recruitment agency. I've got 2 link building agencies. I'm investing in other agencies. And I've got kind of a bit of a portfolio in the international space as well when it comes to finance.
That's super well-rounded. I mean, the hacking probably at school helped you towards the spot, right? That's what we need to consider when we're SEOs. It's to always look between the lines and how you can hack your way to the top, essentially.
100%. And it's all of it's like reverse engineering. A lot of people think of like hacking in the movies, and it's absolutely nothing like that, right? A lot of it is like social engineering, actually. And a lot of it is like, phishing emails and stuff like that. And that translates very well into real world marketing activities and things, right? So a lot of the people that I think I'm lucky as well that I'm British. And if I was American, I probably actually would have been in a lot more trouble than I was. But I think that a lot of those skills do transfer well over to the marketing world. And if there's any hackers out there listening, just quit and start doing SEO, guys. You can make loads more money legitimately.
So, I mean, we're talking about this, right? But in the general SEO blogs, the ones that are followed most, or maybe listening even to Google, we're seeing chaos right now. Everyone seems to be in a state of panic. We're seeing probably an unprecedented number of Google updates that, I mean, they've always been there, but maybe they're a bit more frequent now. People panicking about parasite SEO, about how AI is going to somehow kill SEO, which we've been hearing. I mean, at this point, it's a broken record, right? What do you make of this? Is it as bad as people make it to sound, or is there like a silver lining in all of this?
Yeah, for sure. So I think it really depends on what you were doing previously and what you pivoted in towards now, right? So if you're a small publisher, very niche down, very focused on content for Google, that was optimized in a certain way, and you were maybe matching lots of buyer guides and things like that. And bear in mind, even if you weren't necessarily publishing a lot of that style content, a lot of the same websites that was still the majority of their monetization, right? So that was still how they were making most of their money. They might be publishing other styles of content, but that was still the core of their business, and that got wiped out, right? And generally speaking, it got wiped out not for one specific reason. It wasn't just helpful content. A lot of people like to blame it on one specific update because they can go back and say, it was September, that specific thing screwed me. But realistically, there's a metric of different reasons of why it was effective, right? Reddit and UGC signals being increased, the SERP intent fundamentally changing, right? If you go and look at best paintball guns in Ahrefs or on SEMrush from 4 years ago to now, every single one of the page is now, all the pages have been replaced by different pages that are matching a different intent. It's not that they were replaced by the same style pages, but on bigger corporate websites, they were replaced by fundamentally different pages, right? They're not blog post reviewing pages anymore. They're product guides. They're products listing, category posts, they're Reddit pages, they're all these kind of things, right? So fundamentally, a lot of the intent that these previous people used to pick up has now changed. And if you can't adapt beyond that, and you can't adapt to what Google now wants, then your business is dead in the water. And a lot of the people who have had the loudest voices, especially, are saying that Google has killed their business, right? And I'm personally of the belief that number one, if these people are saying that they're not SEOs and that they're reliant on Google traffic, then you don't really have a business if you're not an expert in what your business is reliant on, right? Realistically, you need to know exactly what your business is and what it's reliant on and how you make your money, right? And you need to be able to be securing that. And if you're not, then you're not, right? So it's not really Google's fault. I would blame these people more than Google. I would blame Google for lowering search quality, right? So generally speaking, the average SERP quality has just gotten worse. And that's more so, in my opinion, because Google are trying to reduce resource spend, improve efficiency, all of these things. Not just the fact that they're trying to profiteer off the ads. They are trying to do that as well. But they're trying to lower costs across the board because they're not as competitive anymore. And Microsoft now have a $1 trillion market cap lead, right? That realistic $1 trillion in market cap lead in the stock market means that Microsoft can now invest a substantially lot more amount of money than Google can in their day-to-day operations. So that transcend. And I think Google is just trying to force market growth via profiting on ads and reducing spend. And that's the main reason, rather than like favoring these corporations and stuff and things, which is what a lot of people have been getting towards anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you can see it even in the deals they're striking, right? Like with Reddit. And Reddit is now blocking all others who are not willing to pay. So we see they made a deal with Google. They have a deal with ChatGPT, as far as I know. But obviously, I mean, you even brought UGC into play. What like people who are working in content, particularly in SEO, we've gotten into the rhythm of like the recipe syndrome, where you're just, there's a question and you just write as much content about that question as you can to get, ranked. And it was working for a long time, but Google seems to be moving or wanting to move away from that in terms of that's kind of what the helpful content update was aiming at, right? A user is coming on the site, their aim is still to drive that user to the website or search result that is going to benefit them most, because ultimately that's what's going to give Google most of the money, right? And they're changing a lot in the SERP. How do you adapt to that, however, if you've been doing things for a long time, if you're a business who maybe you're freelancing an SEO or you've contracted an SEO agency and they're used to doing things in this way at scale, and suddenly you have to shift things. Where would you look at? Do you invest in UGC? Do you focus more on branding? Because I see that being even more relevant now. And one of the things that you addressed in the past was when it comes to link building and building entities. And it seems that the businesses that are building those entities, they have a proper social media in play. They have a good Wikipedia page. They're building links from reputable websites that carry that high authority. Those are the ones who, in the long run, are going to succeed.
Yeah, 100%. So I think, number one, you made a great point there about how they had to adapt in a very short amount of time. And I think that this should be a big wake-up call for a lot of people in SEO, because with how AI is progressing, that's going to start happening more and more and more and more, right? We're going to have AI technology, especially with the advent of like video generative AI and things like that, and all of these new technological leaps. The thing that's just happened in SEO is going to start happening again and again and again, with AI affecting fields and industries and all sorts of things. And especially when the hardware catches up. So when these new NVIDIA chips start rolling out into data centers and we're suddenly getting, it's 100 times more efficient and things like that, that's when stuff starts getting really, really scary. But I think, like I said, this is a really big wake-up call. In terms of search, you if you've been in SEO for long enough, right, you will have always remembered major incidents that changed the way that people have searched, right? So we've had Penguin, we had Panda, we had the Google Medic update. We had so many of these things that fundamentally changed the way most agencies were approaching SEO, that I think you always have got to be aware of what's coming. And a lot of it, people say that, oh, we don't have time to react, right? But realistically, most of the updates at least take a month to roll out. And normally there's a pattern of updates. It's not just one update that's happening, right? Even with the helpful content update, it actually took till March this year for it to actually bake into the algorithm and then really tank these websites, right? But they had about a 9-month window to start fixing things and start moving towards maybe having a higher DR, maybe more investing in social traffic, maybe growing their email list, maybe pivoting to ads, stuff like that, as the publisher side. As the agency side, if you have got that 9-month time frame and every single day things are just ticking more and more and more towards this thing, you just need to be moving more and more towards this thing, right? You need to have an adaptability, otherwise you will die, right? And like I said,
Yeah,
this adaptability is going to become more and more and more a resilience metric, because AI technology, all these things are going to just start killing specific types of SEO, specific industries. And it's not just SEO, right? SEO is an easy one to wrap your head around, because we know, oh, generative AI can change video. We know it can probably start doing schema soon. We know it can start doing the coding, so we don't have to hire developers. There's all of these things where it's very easy. With other businesses, right, you also then have to take into account how it will affect your clients if you're an agency. So AI or disruptions to the global economies or all sorts of things could start having an impact if you're a niche agency, right? Let's say you're a niche
absolutely.
travel agency right before COVID. What happens to you, right?
Yeah,
If
yeah,
all of your clients are in the travel industry and suddenly
absolutely.
overnight there's no travel, right? Your industry's changed. So things like that will happen, but at a broader scale with different technologies and adaptations and platforms and even user adoption, right? We've kind of seen it with this next generation. I'm the oldest in my family, so I have 9 brothers and sisters, right? And I'm only
Okay.
28, so I've got quite a few younger siblings. And all of my younger brothers and sisters who are beneath 16, basically none of them use Google. They just sit on TikTok all
Yeah.
day, or they go on YouTube. They put YouTube on the TV, and they've even like my little brother taught me how to skip the ads without having premium on YouTube. There's stuff
Okay.
like that which they figure out,
Yeah,
which is just
absolutely.
awesome. And I think that level of adoption is really going to start taking into, we're going to start, as marketers, start having to take that into account as the next generation start using platforms, because they're going to be using them in a completely different way to how the last generation used them. And right now, the majority of the wealth is in the older generation, but in 10
Yeah,
years, 15 years, that's going to change, and the way that the wealth is distributed is going to change as well. So we need to just, as an agency, as a freelancer, as a consultant, as an SEO, even as publishers now, you just need to be at the forefront of adaptability. And even if you're not the best at rapidly changing and figuring out your mindsets, you can at least be at the forefront of the technology. So know that
absolutely.
OpenAI is releasing this new voice search that could really impact X, Y, and Z in your business, or this new technology is coming out, this new models coming out, or this new hardware is coming out, and this could affect my business. Just keep ahead of that stuff, and bear in mind you can use AI to keep ahead of it for you, right? You can come up with a
Absolutely.
prompt for Perplexity. That Perplexity
Yeah,
pulls out all of the research that could potentially affect your market and industry
yeah,
every single month for you, and you just go and
absolutely.
check that research for you every single month. So AI can be your best friend and your worst enemy. Right.
100%. And you mentioned 2 points that for me stood out. First off is that like the use of AI will increase. We're seeing the success of India. We're seeing the failure of Intel. I mean, they just laid off 15,000 people because of these pressures. This is no joke. They want to be more efficient in their business. It's not that they were not profitable, but the amount of investment that they're pushing towards making better AI systems, better AI hardwares, it shows where the industry is headed. AI is inevitable. In my industry, so most of the people here in Malta, they're working in SEO, they're working for iGaming, and it's typically two things that we do. It's either content publishing or building links. There's no sort of awareness of a lot of the things that are happening around us. And in conferences in the past, I've mentioned TikTok and understanding the TikTok algorithm and how the algorithm of TikTok, because for me as a user, it works so fantastically well. It's always giving you exactly the content that you want to see, so it keeps you there. And I can see that Google is taking some cues from TikTok and shifting their algorithm in that way. But oftentimes when you think about it, when you talk about these topics, most SEOs that I've encountered haven't properly explored and tested these different search engines and so on. And it kind of leads me a bit into the next question. If you're just starting out in SEO, you mentioned adaptability. I think that is one of the key things that you need to keep in mind whenever you are just starting out in SEO, because it's always going to be a turbulent time. Changes are always going to happen. New technologies will emerge. And I think we're at a shift where we're seeing a generational leap in how people engage with content. You mentioned Gen Z are no longer going to Google. I'm a millennial, and for certain things, I go to TikTok because the results are better. You mentioned travel. If I want to see what the best 5 cafes in Paris are, TikTok is going to give me better content. I'm gonna see the pictures, the videos, people enjoying that stuff. So if you're starting out now, right? And I mean, probably when we started, you mentioned, for example, learning a bit about hacking, understanding HTML, understanding code. What are the skills that you need to have as a person, as an SEO, in order to be able to be successful in these times?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the number one skill is just reverse engineering things, right? So
Yeah.
if you can actively reverse engineer algorithms and websites and competitors and tactics and even things like copywriting, you know, the way you position words for featured snippets, think all stuff like that, right? That is the core of being able to not just grow an SEO campaign, but replicate success, right? So
Yeah.
Google baked in consensus into the algorithm a couple of years ago, and I actually think that was the wrong thing to do. I don't think they should have done that. I think they did it
Hmm.
because, again, it helps with like processing efficiency, and it kind of stops them from having liability around search that could be potentially dangerous and things like that. However, it literally means that Google is looking for the same metrics that are already there
Yeah.
with new
Yeah.
pages to rank them. So all you have to do realistically these days is reverse engineer what's already there and then
Yeah.
outdo it, right? So the key skill would be reverse engineering. I do think though, if you are an SEO agency, freelancer, consultant, whatever it is, at this point, we have to admit that Google isn't even I wouldn't actually say at this stage, if you take into account all searches, right? People tend to think of like search market share as just
Hmm.
search engine market share. But I'm talking
Yeah.
about search market share, right? I'm talking about all searches on the planet. So you're talking about Amazon searches, TikTok searches, the
Yeah.
whole lot. At this stage, Google isn't even 50% of the searches on the global stage now. With when you take into
Yeah.
every platform into account, it's not even close. So realistically, we need to, as SEO professionals, back go back one step and actually reverse engineer where our audience is, right? Because if you're doing makeup now, or if you're doing travel, or if you're doing, you know, you're a
Yeah.
cafe in Rome or in Paris or something like that, realistically, you're probably going to get a lot less success optimizing for Google search than you are for TikTok search, or you are for Amazon
Yeah.
search if you're an e-commerce business in America or something like this, right? So we need to basically go back to the beginning and say, okay, where are the users? Then we need to optimize for the user's search engine where they are. So as SEOs now, our job just became a lot harder because we need to
Yeah.
not just be Google experts. We now also need to know what is the Amazon search engine, right? For an algorithm, by the way, for everyone
Yeah.
who wants to know, that you need to know about the TikTok search engine, you need to know about the Etsy search engine, the eBay search engine, App Store search engine, Google Play Store search engine. All of these search engines you need to have at least some base understanding of so that you can give clients some information, some recommendations, some ability to be able to go and target their users there. Because, like I said, they will get so much more success off of doing that. And I think even if you're not doing client work, you should still be doing the same thing. And we should try to preempt it a little bit as well. We should try and see where is market share shifting. Is it all
Yeah.
going to YouTube? Is it all going to TikTok? Is it all still on Google? Is it all on another search engine, right? Has everybody stopped buying on Google and started buying on Amazon instead? And you can even start geoing it down, right? If you're
Yeah.
specifically in one state in America and you're just serving that state actually might have a preference for using Amazon over Google
Yeah.
or something like that, right? So you need to start taking in demographics into account, right? And there's all sorts of things. So I do genuinely think our job got harder, but bear in mind that it's easier to understand information, it's easier to sort information, it's easier to do all of this because we have AI. So if you want to go
Absolutely.
and find out something very quickly, you can just go and ask Perplexity, or you can go and ask ChatGPT or whatever, and it will give you some very good information back. And likewise, if you've got a giant Excel document of information that you need to go and sort through and figure out what it means, now you can go and get the AI to do it for you. So there's all sorts of stuff where it makes it, the job is harder, but we have got these tools that make it so much easier now.
Yeah, absolutely. It all starts with where your customer is ultimately. I think over the past 10 years or so, we just looked at statistics and we saw Google is the leading search engine, at least in the Western world. And we say, okay, let's focus on that one because that's where most of the traffic is. But oftentimes that comes out with missing out on, I mean, even YouTube, right? It's such an amazing opportunity to create more engaging content. Now they've added shorts, and the amount of the volume of searches, the volume of people still accessing YouTube is still high. And it's also a Google product. So there's definitely also some crossover in optimizing that. And with looking at numbers as well, you mentioned sort of using AI to help with that. I think as SEOs, we generally do not lack data. We actually have an over sort of focus on data sometimes. We just look at the data of what's working, and obviously that's important to look at what we've done in the past, what competitors are doing, and reverse engineer that so then we can implement and look at that for success. But sometimes data doesn't always tell you the full picture if you're not looking outside of the box of what you're working on. And one challenge that I faced, which probably other people who work in larger organizations and they work as part of the SEO function in a wider acquisition team, is how do you convince people around you, or social media people, advertising people, that is now even more a part of SEO? Because we have to consider these as well, right? If you have a separate social media team than an SEO team, that starts to create a bit of a problem in an organization. It becomes challenging to sort of communicate that you're the experts, show that you have a good understanding of their search engine, because mostly they're checking that out from a user point of view, but we're experts at looking at that algorithm. So how would you navigate that type of thing? If I know you're working sort of on your own businesses at this point, but do you have any tips for how to sort of navigate being in an organization working in SEO?
Yeah, for sure. I've worked in agencies when I was a teenager, to be fair, for like 2 years, and I enjoyed working as a team and things like that. And I really do think that's where you will move towards. If you're just beginning and you get thrown into an SEO job where you don't have anybody around you, you're like the only SEO in a digital agency, and there's a PPC guy and a website guy, I wouldn't take that job, right? Because you are going to be stressed out of your mind, right? You're going to have all the pressures on you. Every time there's a Google algorithm update, every time anything happens, it's all on you, right? And you don't even have an experience understanding really of what you're doing. So I would 100% not take that job. If you are just starting out to be intermediate, I would 100% go and try and work in a team atmosphere where you're working with SEOs that not only are experienced, but probably have slightly differing opinions. Because bear in mind, in SEO, you can walk into the one agency building, they've got 20 people there, and you have 6 different opinions on the same topic.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
That's what happens in SEO. That's a good thing, right? It's a good thing to have exposure to differing opinions, because otherwise you start getting tunnel vision, and that's where you start making mistakes. You start listening to advice that's outdated. You start believing in advice that was the case 5 years ago and maybe isn't the case now, and things like that. So there's a lot of stuff like that where you need to be open to listening to whatever is around you, but have that around you. If you're really experienced and you know what you're doing and you have got your stuff sorted out, go and get an opportunity that gives you an opportunity, right? Too many people that I know work in these middle position jobs where they are way, way, way above that, right? I'm talking they're probably working, especially in the UK, they tend to be working for like 50 to 60,000 pounds a year, and they could easily be on like triple that if they really tried and pushed it, and they had like their own personal branding, and they showed case studies, and they were decent with their write-ups, and they had a bit more social presence, and they did some podcasting and stuff like that, right? All of these little additional bits can really increase your career trajectory and increase the your value perception to your organization. That's the main thing. How valued are you in your organization? If you walked in tomorrow and said, look, I've been offered a job across the street for $10,000 or more per month, or sorry, $10,000 a year more, are you going to double that for me? Otherwise, I'm going to walk over to the street. Would they say yes? Right? You immediately know if you're valuable, if they aren't going to increase your salary immediately when you've been offered a job that pays more. If they won't, and bear in mind, there's some level of, if they're a small agency, they're just starting out and they don't have cash flow, that's fair enough, right? But if they do, and they have all of that ability to do so, and they still don't do it, then you're not as valuable as you think you are to them, unfortunately. So I would make yourself more valuable. That is the number one thing, right? Embed yourself in as many things as possible. Be the voice first. Make sure, even if you're wrong a couple of times, it doesn't really matter. At least you showed some voice. Again, this is the other thing. Too many people in agencies are very quiet, and they don't want to be the person to suggest something that goes wrong, or they don't want to be the person that talks about a Google algorithm update because that Google algorithm update dropped out traffic by 5% or something like that. But that's stupid surface level things that don't make progress. If you're the person that's continually pushing for things that are moving forward, you will be seen as that, and you will be valued as that.
I think, yes, the quietness syndrome, I think, with SEOs is it really does affect people who are working in it, and particularly in larger organizations. It's also a mindset, right? Depending on the organization you work with, how much does that organization believe in SEO and in SEO work? Because if SEO is just seen as the salt and pepper you spray on a dish, and unfortunately there's quite a lot of those, then you're not really going to get any legwork. So the tip there is also find organizations that are willing to recognize the importance of SEO and the importance of generating that type of traffic.
100%. There's also an abundance of jobs out there right now, bear in mind. Like, people seem to think that if they leave their SEO job, they're not going to get another job. That in every city right now in the West, there is agencies hiring. And there's in-house people hiring. Everybody is, bear in mind, right now, Google is so embedded in our day-to-day lives that if you need a plumber, you go and Google it. If you need a lawyer for, you've been in a car crash, you Google it. All of these things are Google-based. So as long as there is a city with people searching, there is a market that you should be fulfilling. Bear in mind that a lot of people, again, I think there's actually what you just said was perfect, because there's people that have imposter syndrome as well. Yeah. Because when they're working in these bigger organizations, you tend to work in quite large teams where maybe you're working like 20 to 30 people, and they think that their small contribution, and again, they might think their contribution was small, and it's not, right? It's actually quite big. And I try and I do a lot of consultations with agencies and in-house teams and stuff. And I'm constantly telling people, like, you think what you did was small? You spent 3 weeks creating like this perfectly clustered map for the document that's like going to rank this entire category that's going to increase their revenue by like $25 million a year. And that's small to you. And then they're like, well, when you put it like that, yeah. So this is what I mean. So you just need to remember how much impact you're realistically having and take that into account as well. So I think a lot of SEOs do have imposter syndrome, where they don't think that what they did resulted in this. But just try and backtrack a little bit. Try and think of the things that actually you did see a success from. Maybe, like, it can be as small as you change the page title and you went from number 2 to number 1, right? Those little things can have massive, massive implications across the board. When you start doing them 10, 20, 100, 1,000 times, that can start increasing traffic by 1,000%, right? So there's stuff like that, which, again, you just want to try and take all of that into consideration and try and see your value.
Fantastic, yes. And it's the ongoing thing. It's the consistency that really works in SEO, which might become normal to us in our day-to-day lives of doing SEO. And that can result in that imposter syndrome and undervaluing the work that we're doing. Charles, it's been a fantastic time talking to you. It was genuinely an amazing experience. I've learned so much from this. Where can people find you? I'll leave you to do a sort of cover a bit. How can people reach out to you?
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you having me, first of all. And then my Twitter is @Charles_SEO. You can my LinkedIn is Charles Floate. You can just search me on LinkedIn, and then you can go to charlesfloate.com. That gives you a kind of 4 option links to view more about me, or buy some links, buy some consulting, do some free ebooks and courses and stuff that you can download as well, and start learning some SEO as well.
Fantastic. Charles, thank you so much. And thank you to all you viewers as well. We'll be with you with the next podcast and next show here on the SEO Club YouTube. Subscribe, like, and share. That really helps us out. And we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.